we have a couple of minutes for Q&A, and I want to kind of draw out that these are two very different institutional types serving two very different populations, and yet a lot of the themes are the same related to how a skills-based approach really impacts the learner in specific ways. And Todd, you said something about articulating the experiences that students are having, right? And I think the same kind of lives in Keena's world as well. I wonder if you might talk just a little bit about how that articulation of experience impacts what people perceive about the outcomes of your programs. Todd, maybe if we start with you.
That's an excellent question. And again, we're working in a future space right now because we'll find out after this first cohort goes through and we start collecting some data on them. But our hope is that, I guess it's better to put it into an example. We really believe that all of our students, when they graduate, they go into an organizational context as recent undergrads, whether they're working for-profit, nonprofit, governmental sector, non-governmental sector, education, whatever it might be, it's an organization. And all those organizations share common DNA. And so what we really want is we want that student who is a philosophy major and a gender studies minor, but also knows that they're going to be working in an organizational framework after graduation, to be able to collect the tools that they need for success in that space, whether it be, Six Sigma or whether it be digital marketing, whatever that might be. And they're working on those tools currently, potentially through a campus office. But the ability to say to an employer, I have experience doing this, and I also have a credential that shows that I meet a minimum standard, that I am able to perform the following functions. I think that is really that's the message we're trying to put out there, that we're trying to give students the ability to express that their work experience on campus does translate directly into that workspace, and they are more than just their major and minor, that they have a much more robust skill set.
Awesome. Keena, the same. I know for your learners, there's probably more direct job outcomes that they're hoping to achieve. But in the same vein, tell us a little bit more about how they're articulating that experience and maybe how the skills focus is different than some of the other programs you guys might offer to the adult learner.
Sure, thank you. Definitely want to echo a lot of what Todd said so eloquently, so I won't be repetitive, but I will say, Drexel is known for cooperative education. And so I think the university, this opportunity within our small unit has, made the university take a little bit more of a strategic approach about how we can make greater impact for the lives of Philadelphians through this program. I know specifically for Manufacturing Career Accelerator program, we want them to demonstrate immediately to employers that they have these certifications, that they're able to articulate, their elevator pitch, to be able to identify and demonstrate to those employers those transferable skills that we really try to bolster in the program. And so for 21's graduates, which we had 33, we had a modest employment placement rate, quite honestly, because there was a ramp up needed to, make sure that all the employers that were in our ecosystem was aware that we're cultivating this talent for you. You're telling us you have talent needs. We want you to meet our MCAP graduates. Now in year 2, we definitely, even though we just kicked it off, we've, looked at some lessons learned in that first year. And now we have more engaged employers who are meeting with our adult learners in the program in real time. They're offering mock interviews, insights about company culture. And so what we're hearing from the adult learners is that this program is phenomenal. The value of it is beyond something that they may, would be able to afford. And so we're really just trying to narrow that bridge and break down some barriers to get people these certifications to earn wages, which our goal is beyond $15 an hour. So, talk about being family sustainable wages and all of that. That's our our North Star with our employer partners. Please present opportunities that you have that, you know, are over $15 an hour, and also really offer an opportunity for career advancement with the adult learners. And we are seeing some of that with our alums, and I think we'll see it in our current class too. So I think the impact is definitely great now, and it's going to scale here at the university as we think about other opportunities like MCAP and other initiatives.
Can I just jump in there real
Yeah.
quick? So
Yep.
I think, so Kina just said a couple of things that I'm like, man, you know, I want our students will be those adult learners at some point. And
Yep.
I think that, you know, this idea of being a lifelong learner, and I think that that's really, that's what all, you know, this whole world is, that's what it's all about. Because now it's not, I don't want to say it's easy to be a lifelong learner, but it is far more accessible to be a lifelong learner. Like, you know, 20 years ago, you know, if I were someone to say, oh, you know, I'm kind of interested in project management, that would be me having to find an institution, physically be there, all those things. And now I can kind of dip my toes in project management and get a feel for it and say, hey, you know, does this really fit in my current context? I think that's, I think that's worth kind of mentioning in this. I think that's the real magic of it.
Absolutely, Todd. And just real quick, you know, the cliff that everyone talks about coming up, the student enrollment cliff in 2025. The onus and the charges on universities, right, to think about how they're set up, their infrastructure, the services and support that is going to be needed to really meet all learners wherever they are. So a good time for us to be discussing it and assessing it now.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about what you both said is, you know, just how much benefit is perceived for the learner, both real, you know, and just kind of in their confidence on that learning journey. I'm mindful that one of the things skills does, or at least the narrative of skills, is it kind of puts down the degree a little bit, right? And it basically says in some cases, you know, now in this 21st century world, you know, it's skills, it's not degrees. I don't know that I believe that narrative wholly, but we've heard your great stories about how skills is impactful as you live on and work on college campuses where the primary currency is still a degree. How do you navigate that on campus with the programs that you have, and how do you articulate kind of the value and structure of your programs to learners in that broader concept of, hey, we're a college, we still issue degrees over here, and we'd like somebody to seek those. Kina, how about your thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you for that. I think the real key is for universities to figure out how to create non-credit to credit pathways, because that way you're not necessarily fighting, you know, internal bureaucratic issues about, you know, we're degrees. We will always remain a degree granting institution, right? That will never change. But if we can bring people in the door, connect them through, you know, low hanging fruit, but important opportunities like certificates, and then make the time spent in those certificates, the competencies earned in those certificates matter on the credit side, I think we could set ourselves up quite nicely. And I'll give you a quick example with apprenticeships. So everyone knows apprenticeships is a learn and earn model traditionally seen in construction and other industries. And now there's this really concerted effort to expand apprenticeships beyond traditional industries to go more in cybersecurity and industries that you might not think about. And so at Drexel, we have a team working on how to leverage our cooperative education, which is kind of like an apprenticeship model, and now be able to get someone on a pathway where they're in a registered apprenticeship. We're working with CompTIA on this, in cybersecurity. All the competencies that they learned and the certifications that they earned through CompTIA will now equate to a degree in our College of Computing and Informatics. So that's one example. So it's a lot of internal curriculum mapping and obviously figuring that out, but I think we're in a good position that we'll get there soon. And I think that's a way that colleges can think about, you know, servicing individual or internal needs, but also making sure that they're meeting those learners where they need to be. So creating those non-credit to credit pathways are going to be really important.
Todd, I wonder the same on campus. Obviously, you're in an undergraduate environment where the goal, I think the pinnacle goal for undergraduates is, hey, I got a degree. We know that's a challenging experience overall, right? Given the number of learners who start undergraduate degrees at traditional ages and don't necessarily finish. Obviously, as you demonstrated, your learners are taking it one step beyond to be ready for that kind of core professional workplace environment, which is laudable. How does your campus kind of respond to your program and some of those messages and see the fit inside the degree, or maybe recoil a little bit that that's an additional piece that folks have to learn through and learn about?
So again, we're early days, and because of the traditional nature of St. Mike's, this in some circles this is perceived as a threat. This skills-based education, and or moving towards a competency-based model for education. And the way I look at it, and I think the way at least it fits in my mental model, is that the traditional undergraduate degree, which that's what we are not going to ever stop, developing students towards to that degree and awarding those degrees. But it's very much about the pursuit of knowledge. Correct. And on the other side of it, we have skills, okay, the ability to do things. But we all know from education that, a whole learner knows, understands, and can do. And I think that middle space, that understanding, and I struggle with the word understanding, but I kind of think about understanding as sense making, happens when you take knowledge and skills and you put them together. And I think that that's something that we're working on actively, on campus, is showing folks that these two things, they go together. They are really what create a whole learner. And I think that I think that it's always happened, but it just hasn't been talked about. So we think about the laboratory sciences. It's a massive, it's a target-rich environment for skills acquisition, right? There's a ton of physical skills, but celebrating those physical skills and looking at those as being equally as important as the knowledge. And I think that that's really, that's the sense-making stuff that happens in the middle. And I think that's the direction the conversation is going here on campus. But I agree with Kina, is that we are facing, the 2025 cliff is looming. It's out there in the dashboard warning lights are there. And so we really need to think about what higher education looks like in this new world. And we are very much in a new world. And I think there's no better time for the liberal arts, because we don't know what jobs will exist in 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years. So I'm a product of the liberal arts, and I'm really invested in a liberal arts education, but it can't exist in a silo. It has to be coupled with what the workplace desires and needs, and skills that are transferable across all platforms.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I totally agree. We're in an interesting time as it relates to higher ed, serving learners, and frankly, kind of apply the use of that time, effort, energy, and dollars into productive things, not only for the learner, for the institutions they attend, but also for the communities they serve, for the families they nurture. And the work that you both have described today, I think, is vital and exceptional in continuing that. So with that, I want to thank you, Kina, for the story on Drexel, and Todd for sharing the story at St. Mike's. I want to thank the audience for joining us today. Hopefully you've learned some things, and we appreciate your time, effort, and energy. Take care.